Namaste, Dhanyavad Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're also paying our humble obeisance, our humble Dhanyavad Pranam to Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada for providing us this wonderful commentary and translation of Bhagavatam, and following the instruction and guidance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we are praying to Srimati Radharani. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has told us that unless we can understand something about Srimati Radharani in the 18,000 verses of Bhagavatam, our study has been for waste. So we are praying with this in mind. Yadi seva vanchitasyama yasya kripaya vayam labema sarvam prapnuma prayojanam damni Shri Bhagavat Pade Krishna sambandhi sarvam cha yadi na jani mahetutam ashtadashasu sahasreshu shlokanam Bhagavat oktishu Radharanim na vindam tada nishphalam Bhagavat adhyayanam radhikaya kripam vina vyartasyat sarva parishrama. If we are cheated out of serving that personality whose mercy awards us everything we need, including residence in the Lord's holy Dham and all things connected to Krishna, and if we cannot understand or discover Radharani within the 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, then our study has been pointless. Without the mercy of Srimati Radharani, all our efforts are in vain. So, we are continuing our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam from Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order, chapter 29, talks between Nārada and King Prācīnabarhi, text 5. Buddhim tu pramadam vidyan mamaham iti yat kritam yam adisthaya dehesmin puman bhungte kshabir gunan. The great sage Nārada continued, the word pramada mentioned in this verse refers to material intelligence or ignorance. It is to be understood as such. When one takes shelter of this kind of intelligence, he identifies himself with the material body. Influenced by the material consciousness of I and mine, he begins to enjoy and suffer through his senses. Thus, the living entity is entrapped. Purport. In material existence, so-called intelligence is actually ignorance. When intelligence is cleared up, it is called buddhi yoga. In other words, when intelligence is dovetailed with the desires of Krishna, it is called buddhi yoga or bhakti yoga. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita 10.10, Krishna says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti porvakam dadhami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Real intelligence means linking with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When this is done, the Supreme Personality of Godhead from within gives one the real intelligence by which one can return home back to Godhead. Intelligence in the material world is described in this verse as pramada. Because in material existence, the living entity falsely claims things to be his. He thinks, I am the monarch of all I survey. This is ignorance. Actually, nothing belongs to him. Even the body and the senses do not belong to him, for they are given to him by the grace of the Lord to satisfy his different propensities through the material energy. Nothing actually belongs to the living entity, but he becomes mad after everything, claiming, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. Janasya moho yam aham mameti. This is called illusion. Nothing belongs to the living entity, but he claims that everything belongs to him. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends that this false intelligence be purified. Cheto dharpanam marjanam. When the mirror of intelligence is polished, the real activities of the living entity begin. This means that when a person comes to the platform of Krishna consciousness, his real intelligence acts. At that time, he knows that everything belongs to Krishna and nothing belongs to him. As long as one thinks that everything belongs to him, he is in material consciousness. And when he knows perfectly that everything belongs to Krishna, he is in Krishna consciousness. Text 6. Shakhaya indriya ghana, jnanam karma chayat kritam, shakhyastadvrittaya prana, panchavritir yatoraga. The 5 working senses and the 5 senses that acquire knowledge are all male friends of Puranjani. The living entity is assisted by these senses in acquiring knowledge and engaging in activity. The engagements of the senses are known as girlfriends, and the serpent, which was described as having 5 heads, is the life air acting within the 5 circulatory processes. Purport. Krishna bahir mukahana bhuga vanchakare nikatasta tare japatiya dhare, from the Prema Vivarta. Because of his desire to enjoy the material world, the living entity is dressed with the material gross and subtle bodies. Thus he is given a chance to enjoy the senses. The senses are therefore the instruments for enjoying the material world. Consequently, the senses have been described as friends. Sometimes, because of too much sinful activity, the living entity does not get a material gross body, but hovers on the subtle platform. This is called ghostly life. Because of his not possessing a gross body, he creates a great deal of trouble in his subtle body. Thus, the presence of a ghost is horrible for those who are living in the gross body. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 15.10, Utkramantam stitam vapi bunjanam va gunanvitam vimudha nanupasyanti pasyanti jnanachakshusha. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. The living entities are merged into the air of life, which acts in different ways for circulation. There is prana, apana, udana, vyana, and samana. And because the life air functions in this 5-fold way, it is compared to the 5-hooded serpent. The soul passes through the Kundalini chakra like a serpent crawling on the ground. The life air is compared to Uraga, the serpent. Panchavritti is the desire to satisfy the senses attracted by the 5 sense objects, namely form, taste, sound, smell, and touch. Text 7. Brihad bala manon vidyad ubhayendriya nayakam panchala pancha vishaya yanmadhye navakam puram. The 11th attendant, who is the commander of the others, is known as the mind. He is the leader of the senses both in the acquisition of knowledge and in the performance of work. The Panchala kingdom is that atmosphere in which the 5 sense objects are enjoyed. Within that Panchala kingdom is the city of the body, which has 9 gates. Purport. The mind is the center of all activities and is described here as Brihad Bala, very powerful. To get out of the clutches of Maya, material existence, one has to control his mind. According to training, the mind is the friend and the enemy of the living entity. If one gets a good manager, his estate is very nicely managed. But if the manager is a thief, his estate is spoiled. Similarly, in his material conditional existence, the living entity gives power of attorney to his mind. As such, he is liable to be misdirected by his mind into enjoying sense objects. Srila Ambarish Maharaj therefore first engaged his mind upon the lotus feet of the Lord. Sabhaya Mana Krishna Padara Vidhayo. When the mind is engaged in meditation on the lotus feet of the Lord, the senses are controlled. This system of control is called yama, and this means subduing the senses. One who can subdue the senses is called a Goswami, but one who cannot control the mind is called a Godasa. The mind directs the activities of the senses, which are expressed through different outlets as described in the next verse. Text 8. Akshini Nasike Karno Akshini Nashike Karno Mukham Sishna Gudaviti Dve Dvaro Bahiryati Tasyad Indriya Samyuta. The eyes, nostrils, and ears are pairs of gates situated in one place. The mouth, the genitals, and rectum are also different gates. Being placed into a body having these 9 gates, the living entity acts externally in the material world and enjoys sense objects like form and taste. Purport. Not being aware of his spiritual position, the living entity, directed by the mind, goes out through the 9 gates to enjoy material objects. Because of long association with material objects, he forgets his real spiritual activities and is thus misled. The entire world is going on being misled by so-called leaders like scientists and philosophers who have no knowledge of the spirit soul. Thus, the conditioned soul becomes more and more entangled. 9. Akshini nashike asyam iti pancha purakrita Dakshina Karna Uttara Chotara Smrita Paschime Ityadhodvaro Gudham Sishnam Ihochate. 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, and a mouth, altogether 5, are situated in the front. The right ear is accepted as the southern gate, and the left ear is the northern gate. The 2 holes or gates situated in the west are known as the rectum and genital organ. Purport. Of all sides, the eastern is considered most important, primarily because the sun rises from that direction. The gates on the eastern side, the eyes, nose, and mouth, are thus very important gates in the body. Text 10. Kadyota virmukhi chatra netre ekatra nirmite rupam vibrajitam tabyam vichaste chakshu shesvara. The 2 gates named Kadyota and Avirmukhi, which have been spoken of, are the 2 eyes side by side in one place. The town named Vibrajita should be understood as form. In this way, the 2 eyes are always engaged in seeing different kinds of forms. Purport. The 2 eyes are attracted by brilliant things like light. Sometimes we find that little insects are attracted by the brightness of fire and thus enter into it. Similarly, the 2 eyes of the living entity are attracted by bright and beautiful forms. They are entangled by these forms, exactly as the insect becomes attracted to fire. Okay. We will conclude our reading here for today and continue from text 11 on Monday. Are there any comments, questions, or contributions from the assembled devotees? Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada Srila Guru Maharaj Srila Guru Dev Srila Acharya Dev Ki Jai. Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees, Sama Bhaktivedanta Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai, Sham Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Scientific Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari 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 Bol Jai, Srimati Uma Devi Dasi Ki Jai, Srimati Devahuti Devi Dasi Ki Jai, Hare Krishna.
Sripad Krishna Keshav Prabhu ji ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat. Hari Bol, Hari Bol.